maybe we're living in a completely different time, in a completely different space, with completely different people, but we never realized the whole world had changed. The kind of world we grew up with can't sustain us anymore. It can't provide enough resources the way people currently live. So we've come to this tipping point, this huge shift. Maybe the shift came about when clever people like Al Gore and Nicholas Stern told us about the planet's resources running out. And we thought we'd changed, but actually we hadn't. So what can we do together to build the enthusiasm, to build the encouragement, the action competence in all of us to live differently in a changing world, to live in ways that humans haven't really lived before, to live in ways where they don't use fossil fuels the way our parents used them, to teach people in ways that weren't the normal ways people learnt in classrooms, to do banking with systems like M-Pesa, where your banking depends on your airtime. It doesn't depend on your credit card. Maybe in 5 years' time we'll have no credit cards. We'll be banking with M-Pesa. Maybe in 5 years' time we won't be as reliant on broadband and websites and television. Maybe we'll be creating our own stories, we'll be sharing our own stories, we'll be living our lives differently, and we'll be a little bit prouder because we know we're having less impact on the planet. And that would be a life I would love to try and live for.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful, to live a life without bad conscience.
Yeah.
That'd be good for this.
Yeah, people often say that, Martin Luther King probably helped bring about the biggest shifts this planet ever saw. And he said he had a dream. I have a dream. But imagine if he'd told the story that was true at the time, which was that there was a nightmare. Can you imagine if he'd said to all his friends, I have a nightmare, things are terrible. Nobody would have followed it. No. Who would want to follow somebody who's got a nightmare? So the environmental movement needs to try and celebrate the good things we're learning and share them in a way that's not arrogant, from those who think they know to those who don't know, but a much more inclusive process of raising the dialogue around the practices we have and the things we're doing. And I'm always enthusiastic, meeting people who make their own bread, meeting people who harvest their own food or trying to grow their own food, even if they live in plots of land that are tiny, and even if they're living in areas of the planet that are freezing cold. Many of them are harvesting food and learning to live differently and more gently on the planet. So that would be a world worth living for, really.
I love that idea. I really enjoy this idea of going from the formal negotiation table, where you're trying to figure out the good solutions and then line them up on a map and then just implement them. I think in those conferences the most important contacts and connections and ideas are usually developing in the informal environments, where people are actually sharing experiences and strengthening each other and sharing enthusiasm, as you say, and learning from each other. And growing, growing their experience base on what's the problem like in your area? How does it work? Like, how do you do it? And how do you, and then you share, and that's.
So how can we do things in a way where we get beneath the skin to the deeper stories? There's always a story, and the media often tell the superficial stories, and they tell us the bad stories and the good stories, and it's often very simple. But in any meeting, there's a deeper story. There's something going on beneath the skin. And those stories aren't the told stories. They're not told by poorer people. They're not told by those people who are less better looking or have the fancy voices. But those are the people who can bring about the change. So why don't we look for those deeper concepts?
What changes have you seen where you work? You work with WESA in South Africa, and you work with different communities, and you're working sharing experiences, and you do community strengthening, building projects, or you've seen them. I don't know if you do them, but I mean they do them themselves. What did you see? Could you tell us about that?
I just think when I meet somebody who's doing things differently, he's using the water differently or he's harvesting food differently, or he might have a different kind of toilet, you know, then I'm really interested. And I'd like to see, you know, why is it important to him or her to use a dry toilet when the whole world thinks that waterborne toilets is the way to go? You know, that's really interesting. It's just people exploring different ways of working. When I see the way people use waste and generate waste, I think sometimes, my goodness, there's something I could be doing differently, and wouldn't that be good, you know? Or communicating and sharing in ways that when I send somebody a message, they're pleased to hear from me. Wouldn't that be nice? So often you send people a message, they feel a little bit bad. Oh, I haven't done this, or I should have done that. I wouldn't like to live in a world like that. I'd like to live in a world where people are uplifted when they become part of those dialogues and discussions. And those are the stories behind the conferences. They're the stories beneath the politicians. And they're the stories of ordinary people, because all ordinary people want to live more sustainably, and they want to be loved and liked by their children and their communities, and they want to be respected. And it would be nice if the things we do build that respect. I think we're as good as the company we keep. So we become like the company we keep, and the people we work with and the people who do the courses we do, we learn from them. Of course we do. And if we're ready to be challenged in our thinking, then I think we can learn and grow. And perhaps gone are the days where the teachers knew everything or the experts knew everything. We're living in a world where never before has there been so much challenge. You know, when we were young, people could become bankers or lawyers or teachers. And now we've learned that the schooling system is not as good as it could be. The banking system is collapsing worldwide. The resource base is gone. We're running out of fossil fuels. So we're living for a different way. We're looking for a different way of living.
Right.
It's a different way of living that can't rely on energy the way it used to. And that means we're living in the most exciting times in the history of humankind. So if we're in the most exciting period of humankind, how are we going to change in a way that we don't destroy the life support systems that nourish us and support us? And how can we share those ideas in a way that makes people enthusiastic? And it's no good scaring people. You know, much of the environment agenda was, let's frighten people by showing them how bad things are and then hope that the change happens. And we've learned that once people get scared, they don't change. They just get more cautious. And that's the last thing we need. We need bold people that are trying out new things. And I would love to live a life where I'm part of that change.
But that's where action competence comes in, isn't it? Because it's about raising people's inner strength on acting, on taking action, and actually gaining confidence in that you can do it, and you can do it together, and it doesn't need that much. You don't need to be an academic, or what do you need to do to raise your action competence, actually?
I think you use a beautiful term there. You speak of inner strength. And we all have inner strength, and few of us use as much of our inner strength as we should. Maybe we use 10% of our potential. So for me, building action competence is enabling that inner strength to grow and strengthen. It's like inside us there's like an engine room. It's a place of huge power. And when we're on a training course that's good for us and we become more confident, that inner strength grows. And that for me is a form of action competence. It's growing that strength and being more proud and purposeful in the work I do. And it's like enthusiasm, you know, and encouragement. If the course has much enthusiasm and encouragement, then the change is almost automatic. It just happens in lots of different ways, and that makes people more confident and powerful. Why don't we keep that as the three ideas out of this dialogue? I mean, the three ideas for me are respect, encouragement. Let's encourage all those people who are trying to live more sustainable lifestyles, whether they're rich politicians or poor people, doesn't matter. And the third one is enthusiasm. You know, let's be enthusiastic about change and enthusiastic about the different technologies we're trying and practicing, and if we can set a good example with those, then perhaps we have a hope for a future lifestyle that can be more sustainable on this planet.
Wow, thank you very much.